If new proposals from the Sentencing Council of England and Wales go through, then you could go to prison for 6 years if you dare to say anything about the religion of peace on the internet. So I remember a report back in October 2017. It was a report originally by The Guardian, but it was reported on in Breitbart, which is where I saw it. And the article title was UK to imprison people who view far-right propaganda online for up to 15 years. And according to The Guardian, it said a new maximum penalty of 15 years imprisonment will also apply to terrorists who publish information about members of the armed forces, police and intelligence services for the purposes of preparing acts of terrorism. So, what this showed us was not only were they targeting the far-right propaganda, as they call it, they were targeting actual terrorists. So this was an inclusive attempt to try and stop extremism in the UK, which we all know is ludicrous. I mean, trying to lump in quote-unquote far-right activists, or whatever they want to call them, with Islamists who are literally blowing up kids is ludicrous. A lot of these quote-unquote far-right people and far-right propaganda is actually focused on countering the attempts by the Islamic extremists. So it's completely ludicrous. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are far-right people in the UK, extremist right, whatever you want to call them, the National Action types, the neo-Nazis, but you'd struggle to get 100 in a room. I mean, it's hardly an uprising. But now, the new news is, UK proposes 6-year prison sentences for online posts against religion transgender. So not only are you facing up to 15 years in prison if you're found viewing far-right propaganda. I don't know what qualifies as far-right propaganda. Is this video far-right propaganda? Am I far-right propaganda? Maybe I'm not famous enough. maybe one day I'll be far-right propaganda as described by the government. But this article, it's talking about people promoting hostility towards a religion or the transgendered online could get much harsher sentences of up to 6 years in jail, especially if they have large online audiences, according to new proposals. So let's take a look at this. Now, this comes from changes that were drafted by the Sentencing Council for England and Wales in the document. And if you go on page 50, Public Order Offences Consultation, it talks about culpability. So it's talking about people who are have found guilty of having said something offensive that might target someone for their religion or for their gender or whatever. Even though, by the way, most of these people that they're talking about aren't targeting people individually, they're just talking about a wider problem of an ideology, whether that's hard left ideology and hard left ideologues or Islamic ideology. But here it's talking about culpability on page 50. And it says, A, high culpability, offender in position of trust, authority or influence and abuses their position to stir up hatred, intention to incite serious violence, and persistent activity. So the intention to incite serious violence shouldn't really apply to people like us. I mean, most of us, I would assume most of you watching this are against inciting violence. Persistent activity. Well, I'm pretty persistent. I do 2 videos a day and I talk about some of the things that you're not allowed to talk about on this list. And also an offender in position of trust. Now, who might that be? They're probably talking about teachers and things like that. So if a teacher dare come out and say something about the religion of peace, then they're going to get locked up for a very long time. Not only will they risk losing their job, not only will they lose their career forever, not only will they be hounded out of the profession and attacked from people in the street, they'll also be sent to prison for 6 years. For saying something pretty mundane, I imagine, like Islam rejects man-made law. Ooh, racist! 6 years in prison. It also says authority or influence and abuses their position to stir up hatred. So this immediately made me think of people like Anne-Marie Waters, who have a huge online following and engage in persistent activity. Say something regularly enough and have a big enough online platform, you're going to prison. So that's actually quite scary. I have wondered for a long time why I've not been locked up yet. I certainly hope it doesn't happen. I mean, this whole online community is being constantly battered over the freedom of speech thing. To the point where the left are even eating their own now. They're attacking us and they're eating their own, like that drag queen I was defending the other day. So not only are we facing the constant abuse from the left, the harassment, the bullying, the nastiness, the violence, now we've got the government going after us for daring to say anything about a religion that demonstrably hates us. this religion, from its acts over the last however many years, I mean, it's quite obvious to us that they have a problem with us. And when ISIS tells us this is Islam, Islam makes us do this, and Islam makes us hate you, who are we to say that ISIS are wrong? Who are we to say to ISIS that you are not Muslims? They are! But me even saying this is going to send me to prison, apparently. So I'm reading on in this article. It talks about the proposals will now be subject to a 3-month public consultation ending in August. So towards the end of the summer, we should know exactly what's happening with these proposals. The launch comes 9 months after the Crown Prosecution Service promised to peruse online hate crime as vigorously as those taking face-to-face, saying they hope to see more prosecutions with longer sentences of those convicted of hate online. Now let's be honest here. The CPS has promised to peruse online hate crime more vigorously. I mean, of course they're going to do that. If they want to make it look like they're actually doing something, isn't it easier to just sit a load of police officers on their arse in an office with computers and just say, oh, search this offensive word on Twitter and let's arrest anyone who uses it? It's far easier to do that, and it makes them look like they're being proactive. Meanwhile, stabbing sprees are going on in London. Burglaries are happening in London, and the police do nothing about it. I'm not giving you spiel, by the way. I'm not trying to be a shock doc here. It's true. Burglaries don't get solved in London anymore. I know people who've been burgled, and the police just say to them, oh, well, what can you do? So this shows real corruption here. Real corruption. And I know it's a cliche, but it's very much 1984. So I guess we'll just have to keep an eye on this one. And let's take a look again in August and see if any of us need to start packing our overnight bags. If you want to see more from me and the rest of the Rebel team, remember to download our app on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store, and like and subscribe.